You guys are probably thinking, I bet he, because of his role and his need to be seen, asked if he could give a talk during this Thrive event. This is a true story. I just want to open it up, try to create a vulnerability example for Mary and Ben to follow so they don't make us think they're perfect. So Will and I've been talking about, like, hey, if you want me to share something, what is that? And then he narrowed it down in his mind last week. And I looked at what he wanted me to talk about, and then I looked at a copy of Mary Kill's talk, and I'm like, she's covering it all. I'm just going to sit in the audience. And so, but hey, if you can use me, let me know. And act like we don't talk ever. Like, we're just like, get your people, get a hold of my people, and then we can make that go. And so I said, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we just kick off this event with just you and I having a conversation, and we'll make it fun and lively. And so we shared a Google Doc. He put his part of the conversation. I wrote in my part. He's like, oh, your part's enough for a talk. Why don't you give that? So anyway, I'm thrilled that you're here, and Will shared some of what is happening in our family ministry, and I believe a couple of things. One is there is massive momentum, I think, across our church. I really believe that, but there's incredible momentum in this family ministry right now, and just to let you know how I think about it, I'll tell you kind of where this started for me. I'll share with you my lack of faith, Shauna's big faith in regards to our family ministry, and then what I'm really excited about. For us, so Elijah is an 8th grader right now. And if you look across our church over the years, his grade has kind of been the cap for us in terms of having a robust group at his age level, if that makes sense. And so what's been amazing is every time, so you ladies know, you just keep having babies in this church community, which is awesome. So every time Elijah goes up a grade, what has happened is that we're always backfilling that with kids at the next level. And so without even the church growing for the next 4 years until he becomes a senior in high school, which is crazy, there's just going to be this continual growth in our church in this particular area of ministry. And I want you to hear from me before I tell you my lack of faith when we started this church relative to family ministry, that there are a lot of things I'm passionate about in our church right now, but there are probably 3 things that I'm most and extremely excited about. And 2 of those things are what we're doing in a local and global way from a missions service standpoint. The second one is what we're doing in terms of our sacred vocation, faith and work stuff. Minnie and I have a dinner tomorrow night with 9 leaders in our church where we're going to start launching that in a really robust way, which I'm pumped for. But the third one would be this family ministry. It's one of the things that we're celebrating constantly, even as recently as this past Sunday. Our student group started 3 years ago, and if I'm stealing your thunder, sorry, you wanted me to give a talk, and I mean, there were 3 kids that would show up, and then there were like 7 or 8. Last Sunday, 20 middle school and high school students showed up in downtown San Francisco. So let me tell you that A, it's amazing what's happening, and B, let me tell you my lack of faith when we started this church. When we started this church, Shauna and I, we knew a few things. We had 3 boys at the time, ages 3, 5, and 7. And I was committed to being a good dad, truly. And I was also committed to being a good church planter, pastor. I was really committed to those. But I saw those as 2 very different things. And to be straight with you, I knew that there were more dogs than kids here in San Francisco. And I knew that we were being led to start this church in downtown San Francisco. So I just made some assumptions I probably shouldn't have made. And the assumption that I made is I want this to be amazing for my kids. I don't know that we'll ever have this thriving family ministry. I just didn't think a lot about it. But I had a wife who was praying that we would have a thriving family ministry. And I'm like, it might just be our kids and Brad and Mary's kids, and we'll make do with that. And she's like, no, Ben, we need to be praying that God would do much more than that. And so she did that. And to be honest, Shauna and I, over the last 7 years, we've had some tension points around family ministry. I remember the first time we were in a, can I share this? I know, like, permission beforehand, but in the moment, permission. We were actually in Washington, D.C., and we were watching the World Series. I don't know if do you remember this? That it was not, No, we were in Washington, D.C., but at the particular time I'm talking about. We were watching Zito do a gem of a game, but we were at this point where she thought there were enough kids that I needed to hire a family person. And it's one thing to have someone in the church criticize your decision making. It's another thing when you're married to the one who's saying you need to do something different. And it was not that I didn't value it at the time, but I just I don't know if we can afford it, and I don't, there's limited money. We were still on support, not life support, but financial support as a church. And most of you don't know, but Lindsay Lee was the first one that ever oversaw our kids ministry here at Epic, living in her passion and gifted areas. She was doing that, and I remember when we had a couple of part-time family directors, and then I remember saying, hey, we need to ask Will to take this full-time role. I remember talking to Will about it, and it's been incredible. I think what has happened over the last few years, and as we turn 7 as a church, we'll celebrate that tomorrow, but this Tuesday, February 13th, we turned 7 years old from our very first service at the W Hotel. It's been incredible to see what's happened in this area. So Will, thanks for your leadership, all of you who served, the fact that you trust us with your kids. We see this as a partnership. So I want you to know that, we do not think it's accidental that God has sent you your kids, even if you think that. We do not think it's accidental that God has sent you to this place at this time. We do not believe that it's accidental that God has sent our church to downtown San Francisco. And we want to partner with you. We want to celebrate moments with you. We want to help you thrive in your relationship with Jesus. We want you to thrive as a mom or a dad. We want your children to thrive, your students to thrive. We want you to thrive in the community that God has created here. And we want you to be able to thrive as a resident of San Francisco or wherever you call home in the Bay Area. We want you to be able to do that. We're passionate about that. We want to create an environment here that celebrates high moments for your family, right? Starting with family dedications. We have 3 of those tomorrow at 10:30, which is really exciting. How many people are pregnant in the church right now? 10? 10 or so? 10 that are public with it, but we're open. Anybody want to just haven't told your parents yet, but you'd love to tell the Thrive event crowd this morning. We do that. We love to see your children come to faith through your leadership and our leadership here. We love to baptize children when we believe that they've made this decision to follow Jesus. And we want to create these markers that we hope will become memories for you and your kids. And one of the things we haven't gone public with yet is that we're going to do our initial event next May of 2019, that we believe will become a tradition in the best possible meaning of the word tradition for us. We believe that it will be worth a massive investment of time and resources for us as a complete church to get away basically for a focus weekend as a church, and that's going to start next May. Okay, so Beta Breakers weekend next May. We're going up to Occidental. We have a camp that can hold 500 people. There will be kid events. You won't have to be with your kid the entire time, but enough of it, right? We won't tell you what the minimum is that you have to be with your kid. But we're going to do that. There'll be worship sessions. We'll be doing s'mores at night, recreation during the day. But the biggest thing is we think that in 48 hours, our families and all individuals, not just a family thing, all the singles, couples, everybody, we believe that there's more connection that can take place in an intense 48-hour span of time that would take a couple of years of Sundays and small groups to connect. And so just know that that's coming. Lots of details about that. I want to give you just a few thoughts from me now as a dad, not as a pastor, not as a leader, but just as a dad. And specifically, I want to talk about parenting, but what I want to say to you is that this affects the tech conversation in a major way. One of the things I want you to think about is not that, it's kind of like we talk about orienting our entire lives around Jesus. I want to have an umbrella of the way that I do life. So I want to orient my life around Jesus, and that should affect everything else. I want to have a way that I parent, not a way that I parent in the tech world and a way that I parent in the school world. I just want to have a way that I parent, and then I want to have everything else kind of flow from that. And let me tell you a couple of things that matter most when it comes to my parenting and your parenting. The very first thing that matters most is who you are becoming. How dare us talk to our kids about who they need to become, and we're not focused on who we need to become. The best person you bring to your spouse is who you're becoming. That's the only person you can bring. The person you bring to your kids, the person you bring into this community here at Epic, the only person that you can bring is the person that you are becoming. So who are you becoming? Who are you becoming? The second thing is that my biggest strategy, and Shauna and I, we have this playbook thing. We have a strategy. We think about annual goals. We think about what we're working on. We think about verse of the year. We think about words. We have a big plan. And so let me just say, we are big planners. Shauna was going through some old things when we were cleaning out box last weekend, last Saturday, and we found a note from my mom written before we were married. For those of you that don't know, we've been married since 2000. My mom passed away in 2002, and so these things are rare and incredibly special, and things that I didn't know we still had. And it was like a marriage journal that we haven't done anything in, so but my mom's note to us, she's like, we're 22 and 23 at the time. She's like, I just thought this was the perfect gift for two detail-oriented people. And so we are super detail-oriented people. We are planners. We know what we're doing the rest of this year. We calendar way more than we probably should, but we are on the same page. Let me just say that. So strategy is huge, and however you're wired and however you want to have a strategy, and obviously there's give and take with you and your spouse, strategy is huge. You need to be intentional and have a plan behind everything that you do. But what's more important to me than our strategy is the same thing that I employ as a leader here at Epic. Me being close and engaged with my kids is more important than any strategy that I have. It's like, so if you don't do anything else as a parent, stay close and stay engaged. Like, stay close. My kids, they're never going to have a 3-week stretch where I have no clue what's been going on those 3 weeks. They're just not. You're like, Ben, you're a micromanager. No, I'm a good dad. I'm going to be asking them questions on a daily basis. I'm going to be aware of what's going on with them. I just stay close. I have a mentor, when he talks about spiritual growth and discipleship, his name is Larry Osborne. He says that people tend to grow most when there's either something that they need to know or there's some area they need to grow in. There's something they need to know that makes us pursue growth, right? That's why you get on Google, because you're something you want to know. Or you hit a roadblock in something that you can't handle or you want to get better at, and all of a sudden you need to grow. And so I'm always thinking for myself, what do I need to know, or what do I need to grow in? And I'm always thinking of that about our kids. An example for me is, people used to tell us when we had young children, just wait for those teenage years. I'm like, there's no way the teenage years are going to be harder than these toddler years. Like, teenagers love to sleep. 2-year-olds don't, you know? Like, I can't even fathom that. And I've got to tell you, wherever you're at on the kid journey, the sweet spot is like 5 to 11 for us. Like, they're sleeping through the night, changing themselves, no hormones, emotions in check, all is well. But this teenage world, and I'm going to be honest, because I have a growth mindset, I'm always growing. But when we hit this teenage thing about 6 months ago, just where I started, I literally had no clue what to do. Literally. So I am looking for books now, because I'm in a need to know and a need to grow zone all of a sudden. And I found this book that I'm listening to right now on Audible. It's called Your Teenager Isn't Crazy. It's just nice to know that that's true. You know, like, the title was worth the $15. But I'm listening to that now because I needed to grow. I literally had no clue, and I was surprised because I've been walking and staying close and engaged. I was surprised that I found myself in Cluelessville, really. But because I was close and engaged, I knew what I needed to grow in. And so what you need to do, stay close and engage, and always have a what do I need to know and where do I need to grow mindset. And what's beautiful that we'll mention somewhat about you being in a community like this, and same reason, this is not Pastor Ben, this is Dad Ben. Keep that in mind. What's great about being connected in a community like this is that there are several people you can ask any question to now and get a wide spectrum of answers. The McCords have taught us a ton about parenting. Why? Because they're ahead of us in the game. We've been able to pour back and teach a ton of people about how they should raise their little kids. You know what I mean? We've been able to do that. And so you have access to that and access to resources. Will and I got an email from a dad in our church last week. Hey, my son is struggling with some respect issues. What would you guys recommend? If you're not taking advantage and you're just saying, I need to figure this out on my own, you're crazy. And you probably won't figure it out on your own. So I'm asking myself, where do I need to grow? And then in my parenting, Sean and I, we're thinking, where do our kids need to grow? And we would not give you just general terms that our kids need to grow in. We would tell you right now. We would tell you about the one who needs to grow in confidence. We'd tell you about the one who needs to grow in perseverance. We would tell you those kind of things about them because we're staying close enough to them and really trying to stay engaged. Don't be a parent that makes decisions that are arbitrary in nature or merely reactive. That should be a great fear, and you should really take that as a challenge. You don't need to do things just because, hey, that makes sense, or, oh, it seems right. Like, why are you doing what you're doing and whatever you're doing? So let's just take technology, for example. I always wondered, at what point would we give our kids phones? You know, their friends have phones. That's not good enough reason. Everybody knows that, right? So when will we give our kids phones? We will give our kids phones when they begin to ride public transit by themselves. No longer arbitrary. No longer like, well, it feels right. Well, no. Oh, you're riding the 38. We'll give you 2 phones, you know? So that's when we make the decision. You think, oh, Ben, you're giving us technology advice. Well, that is, but I'm just giving you parenting wisdom. That you need to have a plan on why that happens. And the thing I want to say, especially to us as parents, is like we can't throw our hands up and go, well, it's as if we just can't help ourselves. One of our kids has a teacher at school that was talking to Shauna about she can't keep her 7th grader? She can't keep her 6th grader off his phone. And Shauna's like, really? Like, you're the mom. She's like, well, he finds it wherever I put it. I'm like, oh my gosh. But how many of us are like that? But from a faith perspective that hits the technology piece, you need to know, what do you want to give your kids a little bit of, and what do you want to give them a lot of? This is this is like for your life. This is why our vision statement is what it is at Epic. What do you want your kids to have a little bit of? None of. There should be a category there too. But what do you want your kids to have a lot of? Because whatever they get a lot of, that's going to come out of their lives a lot. It's going to come out of their lives a lot. I want to read one text in Deuteronomy. It's known as the Shema. I'll just read it to you. It says this, and I want you just to hear about how much the Jewish parents were being instructed to get a lot of God into their families. Here's what it says. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road. When you lie, everybody thinks that's their kid. That's awesome. That is awesome. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. I don't know that we need to do that literally, but I do know this. If you and I think that 1 hour of church and an hour of Epic Kids per week is going to help our kids make the kind of decisions that please God and carry out His purpose for their lives, we're foolish. We're foolish. It doesn't matter if your dad's the pastor. It's not going to make any difference. What do you want your kids to have a little bit of, and what do you want them to have a lot of? So we could get into strategy, but I'm going to leave that for Mary and Ben because they're going to, I'm sure, cover some ways that have been helpful. I do want to leave you with a few thoughts from a secular book that's really been helpful to me, though. It's the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. Anybody read that book? Anybody? Awesome. You guys all have so much to go read. It's an incredible book about passion and perseverance. But she's Jewish, I believe. I could be wrong. She actually, for a time, taught at Lowell High School. But she has a chapter on parenting, and I want to give you 3 things that she says that have been really helpful to me, and I think they will help with the technology conversation. The first thing she says that I thought was interesting is that parenting comes from the Latin meaning to bring forth. To bring forth. Now, ladies who have delivered children, I know what you think about that phrase, bring forth, but it also, I'm seeing it as, like, who do we want to bring forth, not only, into the world literally at their birth, but who do we want to bring forth when they reach adulthood? What kind of person do we want to bring forth? I think that's an interesting thing. Another one that's really huge to me is she talks about the idea that our children need freedom and they need limits. They need freedom and they need limits. And one of the things that I've learned from this teenage book, it's a statement that was super helpful to me. It went like this. It's a husband and wife doctor duo that wrote the book, Your Teenager Isn't Crazy. And they said this, permit where you can, protect where you must. Permit where you can. Look for every way you can say yes. Protect where you must. Permit where you can. Protect where you must. And the last thing I want to give you is a chart from that Grit book that will talk to you a lot about your parenting style. Okay, so on the two axes here, you've got the demanding one and the supportive one. And this is really helpful. So I want to tell you where I think we're likely to miss the boat in 2018 in San Francisco. I want to tell you where we're likely to miss the boat. I do not think we're likely to miss the boat down here in the bottom right. If that's you, like, let's chat. This is like super demanding, super unsupportive. So you become the authoritarian parent. On the bottom left, I don't believe that's most people that I know here in our community or even in the city. Undemanding and unsupportive, neglectful parenting. Again, let's chat about that. Stay close and engaged. I believe the top left is where we're going to struggle the most. And let me back out of the parenting conversation for one moment and say, I believe that you can think about these four quadrants and how a lot of us view God. You know, we're in this Jesus Reimagined series, and what I run into in my counseling and conversations and just hearing responses from people to faith in Jesus, a lot of people see God as the bottom right. He's demanding but not loving. But more people see God as the top left. He loves me and is cool with whatever I do. And so not only am I going to urge you towards the top right quadrant for your parenting, but in how you see God and how you help your kids see God, it's the top right. We even adopt some of this language for our staff culture. We say that we want this to be a high demanding job within a life-giving culture. So I'm not going to bow away from conflict when Will tells me he wants to get a 15-passenger van and a 14-year-old chaperone. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, Will, I love you. I do. But this top left one, let me just say this. It's supportive but undemanding, meaning you never challenge your kids and you allow them to get away with whatever it is that they want to get away with. But the best way for your kids to grow up and become who they are intended to become, who they have the potential to become, is when you and I parent in this top right quadrant. And so you need to ask yourself this question: what kind of nurturing environment am I creating? You need to make sure you're creating one. And then what kind of challenge am I giving to our kids? That's what they need. That's what they need. And this is how God treats us. Does God love us? Absolutely. Right? Is there anyone more demanding of us than God? Absolutely not. He demands perfection, right? We find righteousness in Jesus, but God, He loves us, but He's constantly challenging us. And I want to make sure, as you continue to think about how you want to parent, ask yourself, hey, where am I being permissive with my parenting? And the problem with permissive parenting is this: they will thank you for it. Anybody know this? Your kids right now, they won't thank you for it 10 years from now, 20 years from now. But right now, they will thank you. Thank you for giving me that third chocolate chip cookie. Thank you for having unlimited screen time, right? And so if you care most about how, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, which means I'm a performer. Anybody else? Anybody taking a performer? Okay, which means every time I'm doing what I'm doing right now, I'm wondering, how's everybody, what do you think? And I even do that in my parenting. I
just
even do
figured
this.
out a way to save a bunch of money online. I was about.
Now I think I must be terrible. I want to encourage you with this: stay close, keep growing, make your kids grow, or at least give them the best possible environment and challenge to do so. Do not be reactive in your parenting. Be a wise parent. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this calling that you've given us to be mothers and fathers. Thank you for the privilege it is to bring children into this world, to be a part of this community, to have others who can challenge us, connect us, spur us on, encourage us. God, I pray that you would give us the right amount of grace to lead and to pour out to our children, and give us the right amount of truth to lead and pour out to our children. Help us not to be permissive. Help us not to give them a little bit of God and give them a lot of the world. Help us to orient our homes around you, as we say around here. In Jesus' name, amen.